Today, I woke up feeling very refreshed. It was because I was going to get to see my daughter Emma and my grandson John after a long time. I was fully prepared with a housewarming gift and treats for John. In high spirits, I left the house with my husband and we arrived at Emma's new home after a few minutes. It was a very beautiful and splendid house, predominantly white. I couldn't contain my excitement to see everyone, but Emma and the others only spoke to my husband. They didn't say anything to me, nor did they make eye contact. My husband handed Emma the housewarming gift and gave John the treats I had prepared, and they walked to the dining table while chatting. Then, Emma, John, and my husband started talking happily around the table. I continued to stare blankly at them as they talked. It was not that they couldn't see me, so why wouldn't they try to talk to me? In that uncomfortable atmosphere, I suddenly sensed a presence in the hallway. When I looked, I saw John beckoning me from the shadows of the hallway. Ah, I hadn't been forgotten. Feeling relieved and happy, I hurried over to John. "John, you've grown so much. What's the matter?" John said.
"Well, Grandma."
He seemed to be struggling to speak, mumbling something. After a while, he finally opened his mouth. What that means. If my hunch was correct. Feeling as if cold water had been thrown on me, I left John there and impulsively ran outside. It must have been about 10 minutes since I rushed out of Emma's house. When I calmed down, I noticed my smartphone vibrating. "I'm sorry. I heard something from John and couldn't help but run out. Actually, I have something to talk to Emma about." The time had finally come to speak. "I am Nancy. Recently, something delightful happened to me. The day after I turned 52, my colleagues at work gave me a small celebration. On my birthday, both my husband and I had the day off. I was slightly hoping for something special, but the day ended just as usual, and I went to bed feeling a bit disappointed. I carried that feeling with me to work the next day. Then, my colleagues and juniors celebrated with me, and I felt warm and happy for the first time in a while. Look, my coworkers celebrated my birthday.
Oh, that's nice.
I reported it to my husband as soon as I got home as I was overwhelmed with joy, but his response was flat. I wondered if the special feeling of birthdays fades after being together for so many years. He used to be a bit more considerate. 30 years ago, my husband and I met through a mutual acquaintance. I was drawn to his subtle kindness and pleasant demeanor, and we started dating. Over time, we got married and had a daughter, reaching the peak of our happiness. At the beginning of our marriage, he was just as kind as when we were dating. However, one day, despite the birth of our daughter, he started coming home late and going out more often, claiming it was for work-related socializing. I wondered where he was and what he was doing under the guise of socializing. As I was frustrated by his frequent outings, I asked him, "You've been going out a lot lately. Where do you always go?" He quietly opened his mouth.
Slot.
I felt like sighing. It seemed he had gotten hooked on gambling, which started as a work-related activity. I understand it might be hard to stop suddenly, but could you try to reduce the number of times you go? Hoping to prevent him from getting further into gambling, I made this request.
I'll try my best,
he said. I decided to trust and wait for my husband to change. A few days after that conversation, on the day our daughter Emma started attending kindergarten, I noticed that the collection bag for the kindergarten was empty. I wondered if I had forgotten to put the money in and started looking for it, but it was nowhere to be found.
You need to leave for the kindergarten, or you'll be late,
my husband said, seeing that I was still not ready to leave despite the time. I want to take her to kindergarten, but the collection bag I had prepared is empty. Where could money have gone? My husband started to panic.
I'm sorry. I was short on money and used some yesterday.
I was so shocked by his sudden confession that I was speechless. Why? Why did he take money from the collection bag? Questions raced through my mind. A mix of shock and confusion overwhelmed me. I decided to pretend everything was normal and take Emma to kindergarten, and planned to talk about it that night. Not enough money? Is it because you spent it on the slot? How much did you spend? He looked apologetic with tears in his eyes and apologized in a small voice. I had asked him to reduce his visits to the slot, but he couldn't stop going. In fact, he started spending more money, dipping into our living expenses. As he continued to explain, even more shocking facts emerged. It turned out that he had taken out loans in my name. I couldn't believe it was real.
I'll reduce the number of times I go to the slot. I'll repay the debt without causing you any trouble, Nancy.
He pleaded, tears in his eyes. Can I trust this man's words? Can someone addicted to gambling quit so easily? Although these thoughts were in my mind, I decided to end the conversation since I realized that continuing to talk wouldn't solve the problem immediately. The three of us usually slept together, but I wanted to calm down, so I slept separately from my husband. In the middle of the night, I lay down next to Emma, who was sleeping soundly, and a word flashed through my mind. Divorce, maybe. I whispered softly as I closed my eyes. When I looked beside me, I saw Emma's peaceful sleeping face. If we got divorced, Emma would lose her father. To Emma, he was a kind father who played with her often. And Emma was very attached to him. All right, I'll try to believe in him. I thought it would be unfair to Emma if I divorced impulsively, so I decided to trust that my husband would change. However, it wasn't that simple. My husband repeatedly dipped into our living expenses. Each time we talked about it, but he kept doing it. Frustration grew with his lack of change, and sometimes I didn't want to talk to him or even see his face. But I didn't want Emma to see her parents' strained relationship. I held back from divorcing my husband, though I was driven by the desire to protect Emma from sadness, no matter how many times he betrayed me. Unaware of the conflicts between my husband and me, Emma grew up quickly and became 15.
Dad, Mom, listen. I got a good score on the recent mock exam.
She has grown into a very studious child, though I wonder whom she took after.
Wow. You did great.
My husband said. That's amazing. What a relief. I added. The once little Emma was now talking excitedly about her upcoming high school entrance exams during dinner. Only 2 months until the exams. Around midnight, I realized her light was still on as I passed by Emma's room. It seemed she was studying late. I thought I might bring her a snack to give her a little break. Emma, sorry to interrupt your studying. I'm coming in.
Mom, what's up?
You're studying so hard, so I brought you some pudding as a treat.
Wow. Perfect timing. I was just thinking about taking a break.
Emma eagerly ate the pudding. She had studied so diligently every day that I sometimes worried she might be overdoing it. I was very impressed by her dedication to getting into her desired high school.
Oh, by the way, Dad gave me this the other day.
Emma happily showed me an encouragement card for her exams.
Dad is so thoughtful in ways like this.
My husband supported Emma's decisions, cheered her on, and gave her thoughtful gifts, showing great kindness to her. However, despite Emma's growth, my husband continued to accrue debt and turned to me in tears each time, and his behavior unchanged. Emma didn't know about his gambling addiction and believed he was a good father. Emma finished her high school entrance exams and successfully got into her desired school. Emma, that's wonderful.
It's thanks to Mom and Dad's support. Maybe Dad's card gave me the strength. Thank you.
Even if the persona my husband shows to Emma is false, as long as Emma is happy, that's what matters. Seeing Emma's joyful face made me glad I didn't go through with the divorce. Emma enjoyed her high school life and then decided to attend a university in the city, far from home. Are you really going to New York? I always thought she would stay local, so the thought of being apart from Emma made me very sad. But I didn't want my feelings to limit her choices in her life. I wanted Emma to freely walk the path she chose for herself. With these complex feelings, I accepted her decision to move to the city.
Mom, don't worry. I'll come back sometimes.
Emma reassured me since she seemed to sense my sadness. And then, the day of Emma's departure arrived. My husband and I took her to the airport.
Dad, Mom, stay happy together,
she said cheerfully as she was waving occasionally and walked toward the boarding gate. I silently returned home feeling the weight of the sadness. Just the two of us living together, huh? My husband would likely continue to indulge in gambling without learning his lesson. Thinking that, I sighed softly. My prediction came true. When we were living with Emma, my husband used to go to the slots for short periods so she wouldn't notice. But at that time, I was the only one left at home. As if spreading his wings, my husband spent all his time at the slots, whether after work or on his days off. As long as we had enough money to get by, I said nothing to him and just went about my daily life. Deep down, I thought, no matter what I say, he won't change. I'm too tired to make him stop. Perhaps I had already given up. While living that way, Emma graduated from college and decided to get a job over there. So she's not coming back. I had hoped she might return home after graduation, but my wish didn't come true that easily. A few years later, I received some happy news from Emma.
Mom, I got proposed to.
Wow, really? Congratulations. What is he like?
His name is Jason, and he's super kind, just like Dad. And,
Emma went on talking about the furniture for their new home, which plants to choose, and other trivial matters. I got stuck on the words, just like Dad, but listening to Emma's lively, happy voice, I swallowed the words that almost spilled out of my mouth. Should I tell Emma about her father? But if she found out that the father she thought was kind was actually a gambling addict with debts, it would break her heart. I didn't want Emma to feel that pain or sadness. Convincing myself of this, I let the opportunity to confide in her pass by. A year later, even more joyous news arrived. Emma had given birth to a baby. In the video, the baby looked so tiny and fragile, as if touching him might break him, yet he cried out with a strong voice. He was a cute baby. He was our first grandchild. I wanted to visit immediately, but the distance made it difficult. They named him John, and Emma sent photos and occasionally made video calls since she thought I couldn't go to see. With each contact from Emma, I could see John growing into a healthy, lively boy. When my husband was home during video calls with John, I'd call him to join us, and we'd look at John's photos together. Although my dissatisfaction with my husband persisted and our conversations were minimal since it became just the two of us, we could talk naturally like a normal couple when it came to John. John's presence was my solace. However, Emma's messages gradually became less frequent. She had likely returned to work, finding it challenging to balance her job and parenting. I remembered having such a period myself, when everything was busy and difficult no matter what I did. When she was juggling work and raising children, frequent messages can be overwhelming. It would be better to get in touch once her life settles down and she had more time. Thinking this, I refrained from contacting Emma too often. 5 years have passed since John was born. Unusually, my husband was home for dinner and said,
Emma told me they're moving to the next town. Apparently, Jason got transferred.
Really? Did she contact you?
Yeah. She only mentioned it briefly since they've been busy.
She could have told me something so important directly. Feeling a bit miffed that she hadn't contacted me, I was still thrilled that Emma would be moving nearby. I decided to get in touch with her over the weekend. I couldn't wait for the weekend to arrive. Thinking that, I somehow fell asleep pleasantly that night. When the weekend came, I opened my phone to contact Emma. Just as I was about to call, I thought it might be better to send a message first since I didn't know what she was up to. Hey Emma, how are you? Is Jason and John doing well too? Dad told me you're moving to the next town. Is it true? Let me know the details when you have time. I sent the message and anxiously waited for a reply, but none came by midday. It was only that night that Emma finally responded.
Sorry, I've been busy. Our house in the next town will be ready by the end of May. We plan to move in June.
Got it. Let me know when you've set the moving date. Her brief reply conveyed her busyness. I wanted to chat more, but I ended the conversation there to avoid bothering her. A few months later, the day of Emma's move arrived. I was excited to see Emma and John after such a long time. I woke up unusually refreshed and found myself humming a tune while getting ready. I've got a housewarming gift and some treats for John. We're all set. Are you ready? My husband replied.
Yes. I'm ready. Shall we go?
Together, we headed to the neighboring town to celebrate Emma's new home. After a short drive, we arrived at Emma's new house. It was a beautiful, pristine house with a white exterior. I entered the house eagerly, excited to see how much John had grown. My husband greeted Jason.
"Hey Jason. What a splendid house you've got here."
Jason responded.
"Long time no see. Please, come in."
Emma welcomed us.
Dad, welcome. Come in, come in.
John exclaimed.
Yay. You're finally here.
Emma, Jason, and John rushed to greet my husband and invited him in. As my husband moved forward, I quietly followed behind. However, it seemed that all three only acknowledged my husband, not saying a word or making eye contact with me. Thinking it was just my imagination, I sat down on the living room sofa. My husband presented the gifts.
"Here's the housewarming gift. And some treats for John."
Emma expressed her gratitude.
Wow, Dad, thank you so much. Did you pick these out?
He replied.
"No. Nancy chose them."
Emma remarked.
I see. Oh, Dad, you like this kind of liquor, right? Jason likes it too.
She then moved to the dining table, and the three, excluding me, gathered around it, chatting cheerfully. I sat there watching them converse, and I was feeling increasingly overlooked. It wasn't my imagination. They weren't speaking to me or making eye contact. Despite my presence, neither Emma nor Jason made any effort to talk to me. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Even John, who used to recognize me so well on video calls, didn't come near me. Perhaps he had forgotten my face since we hadn't video called in a while. Puzzled by Emma and Jason's behavior, I remained seated on the sofa. In that uncomfortable space, I suddenly sensed a presence in the hallway. Looking over, I saw John beckoning me from the shadows of the hallway. John wanted to talk to me. Feeling relieved and happy that he hadn't forgotten me, I hurried over to him. "John, you've grown so much. What is it? Do you want to tell Grandma something?" John hesitated, mumbling as if he found it hard to speak. The words that came out of his mouth next were completely unexpected.
Grandma, please don't take money from Mom and Dad.
Stunned, I asked him again. "What? Grandma is taking money from Mom and Dad?" I was utterly confused by this sudden accusation. When had I ever taken money from Emma and her family? And why would 5-year-old John be saying this to me? "Sorry, Grandma doesn't understand about the money. Did Mom and Dad say something?" I gently probed, trying to understand why John was bringing this up.
I overheard Mom and Dad talking.
He said.
They said that because you take money, they're in trouble. They said they can't give you money anymore. Please don't make Mom and Dad suffer.
John's eyes welled up with tears as he pleaded with me. Seeing his sad face, I couldn't help but stroke his head. As I patted John, a realization hit me. Could it be? For the past year or two, my husband hadn't talked to me about money. I had assumed he was just doing better with his gambling, so I didn't think much of it. But if my suspicion was correct, feeling as though cold water had been poured over me, I left John standing there and ran outside. After running for a bit and getting out of breath, I sent a message to my husband on an app. Then, I headed straight for a nearby place without looking back. It had been about 10 minutes since I rushed out of Emma's house. Calming down, I noticed my phone vibrating. Before I could pick it up, the vibration stopped. I saw that there were multiple missed calls from Emma. I decided to call her back and apologize for leaving without saying anything. "Sorry for leaving so suddenly without saying goodbye," Emma responded.
That's fine, but after we noticed you were gone, Dad suddenly left too. What's going on with you two?
Emma sounded confused. "I'm sorry. I heard something from John and just ran out. I actually have something to talk to you about." The time had finally come to tell her. What John mentioned was completely unfamiliar to me. It was almost certainly my husband's doing. He must have been borrowing money from Emma and her family without telling me. If this continued, he would keep pestering them for money. I didn't want them to suffer as I had, so I decided to tell Emma everything. "I know you love Dad very much, but I've been troubled by him for a long time." Emma replied.
Okay.
Dad has been addicted to gambling since before you were born. He hasn't been able to shake the addiction, and during the worst times, he even dipped into our living expenses. Emma sounded shocked.
What? I didn't know that.
I've had to take out a lot of loans in my name because of him. I'm still slowly paying them off, but Dad hasn't changed, and there's still a long way to go. Emma said.
Wait a minute. That's not what I heard. Isn't it you who's in debt and struggling?
Did Emma think I was the one with the debts? Emma said. About 2 years ago, Dad asked to borrow money. When I asked what it was for,
he didn't give a clear answer and only said that you were in trouble. It wasn't a huge amount, so we lent it to him. Over the past year, he's been contacting us a lot, and even though I asked to speak with you, he wouldn't let me.
According to Emma, my husband had been contacting Emma and Jason, asking for money because I supposedly had debts and couldn't repay them. And this has happened more than once. Moreover, my husband had told them this to prevent them from contacting me directly.
Mom has gone a bit crazy because of her debt. So don't contact her. If she gets worse, it'll be a problem. So it's best not to provoke her.
Hearing this from Emma pushed me to my breaking point. How could he have the nerve to borrow money from our daughter's family? I'm really sorry that Dad has been causing you trouble, and I'm sorry for not telling you about him earlier. I deeply regretted not sharing my husband's behavior with Emma sooner. Because I kept silent, Emma and Jason had suffered so much. I couldn't stop thinking about the opportunities I missed to tell her and regretted them deeply. I kept it a secret because I knew how much you loved and looked up to Dad. I didn't want to take him away from you. I wanted him to be a good parent in your eyes and for us to seem like a happy family. Emma listened in silence as I spoke through tears. After a while, she spoke in a trembling voice.
If you were struggling that much, I wish you had told me. Even as an adult, have I been that unreliable? No matter what, my feelings for you and Dad won't change, and we're family because we can talk about anything, right?
Her words made my tears flow even more. Emma said.
So, do you know why Dad left in such a hurry earlier?
Right, I had completely forgotten about my husband. After hearing from John, I reached my breaking point and went to the city hall. I messaged Dad saying, I got the divorce papers. I can't take it anymore, I'm divorcing you. Emma replied.
That's why he looked so panicked when he checked his phone. He was in such a rush that he left the door wide open. He didn't even get to drink his favorite liquor. Serves him right, though.
She chuckled as she said this. Emma, I'm going to divorce Dad. Emma responded.
I understand. Thank you for trying so hard all this time. Also, I'm sorry for believing what Dad said and treating you badly. Will you forgive me?
Of course. It was quite a shock to be ignored, but I'm glad we're talking again. With this, Emma and I reconciled and were able to talk as we used to. It seems Emma shared the truth with Jason as well. Later, I received an apology call from him. Jason said,
I apologize for my rude behavior the other day. Emma told me everything.
Don't worry about it. I'm sorry for causing trouble with my husband. I'll make sure he repays the money. Jason continued.
I have a friend who specializes in divorce mediation. Would you like me to introduce you?
I was able to reconcile with Jason too, and he even offered to help with the divorce preparations. Since it was difficult to live in the same house as my husband until the divorce was finalized, I rented an apartment and lived alone to avoid seeing him. The preparations for my side of the divorce went smoothly, and all that was left was to file for mediation. The person Jason introduced was very skilled and recommended that I also claim alimony to make up for everything that had happened. Without hesitation, I proceeded to file for alimony. While receiving money wouldn't change the past, it would help lighten the burden. Hello, is that you? I'm ready for the divorce. How are things on your end?
I'm really sorry for everything, Nancy. Can you reconsider? I promise I won't go to the slots anymore. And I'll properly repay Emma and Jason. Please, come back home.
I've heard, I won't do it again so many times before. Can you understand the pain I've felt from believing your words and being betrayed over and over? Remembering the countless betrayals made my chest tighten with pain. Even after the divorce mediation started, my husband stubbornly resisted. But after multiple sessions, we finally finalized the divorce. We arranged for my husband to repay the debts in my name, freeing me from the burden of debt. The money borrowed from Emma and Jason was also legally arranged to be repaid by my husband. After the divorce, my husband continued living alone in our former house. However, gambling addiction is truly terrifying. Despite everything, my husband couldn't quit gambling. Unable to borrow money and with nowhere to turn, he eventually resorted to using his company's funds. Now, he seems to be living quietly in a town far from our hometown. He's working steadily to pay off alimony and the debt. One day, a while later, I visited Emma's house. As we chatted and had lunch together, the conversation suddenly shifted.
Hey Mom, Jason and I have decided something. Why don't you come live with us?
I was surprised and overjoyed by the unexpected proposal. But I had already caused enough trouble for Emma and Jason. I couldn't impose on them any further. I'm very happy, but I'll just accept your feelings. As soon as I said that, John's enthusiastic voice rang out.
Does that mean Grandma will live with us? Yay. Grandma, we'll be together all the time. Happy.
Seeing John's joyful expression and excitement, I felt it would be more impolite to refuse. Can I really lean on you like this?
Of course. John is excited, and Jason and I would be happy to. Plus, it will be fun living together.
And so, I moved in with Emma's family. Since both Emma and Jason wanted to focus on their careers, I spent my days helping with housework and taking care of John. Thanks to that, my days were very fulfilling. While living this enjoyable life, I sometimes thought about the past. During the most difficult times, what would have happened if I had trusted Emma, even though she was still a student, and talked to her about her father? If I had confided in her when she got married, would the future have been different? But by finally gathering the courage to speak up, I am now able to live a life of incomparable happiness.
Grandma, I'm home. Guess what? Today, my teacher.
Watching John happily recount his day with a beaming smile, I wished this happiness would last forever.